court, sir. Mr. Thomas's character is gone.' 'Am I to understand,' began Gideon. 'My dear sir,' said the Australian emphatically, 'it isn't possible to understand unless you saw them.' 'This is a painful circumstance,' said Gideon. He glanced pityingly in the direction of the culprit, and observing on his countenance every mark of confusion, pityingly withdrew his eyes. 'And that would be nothing,' continued Mr Dickson sternly, 'but I wish from my heart, sir, I could say that Mr Thomas's hands were clean. He has no excuse, for he was engaged at the time, and is still engaged, to the belle of Constantinople Gar. My friend's conduct was unworthy of the brutes that perish.' 'Gar?' repeated Gideon inquiringly. 'A contraction in current use,' said Michael. 'Gar for Georgia, in the same way as Co for company.' 'I was aware that it was sometimes so written,' returned the barrister, 'but not that it was so pronounced.' 'Fact, I assure you,' said Michael. 'You now see for yourself, sir, that if this unhappy person is to be saved, some devilish sharp practice will be needed. There's money, and no desire to spare it. Mr Thomas could write a cheque tomorrow for 100,000, and Mr Forsyth, there's better than money. The foreign Count Tarnow he calls himself, was formerly a tobacconist in Bayswater, and passed under the humble but expressive name of Schmidt. His daughter, if she is his daughter, there's another point. Make a note of that, Mr Forsyth. His daughter at that time actually served in the shop, and she now proposes to marry a man of the eminence of Mr Thomas. Now, do you see our game? We know they contemplate a move, and we wish to forestall them. Down you go to Hampton Court, where they live, and threaten or bribe or both until you get the letters. If you can't, God help us, we must go to court, and Thomas must be exposed. I'll be done with him for one,' added the unchivalrous friend. 'There seem some elements of success,' said Gideon. 'Was Schmidt at all known to the police?' 'We hope so,' said Michael. 'We have every ground to think so. Mark the neighbourhood. Bayswater. Doesn't Bayswater occur to you as very suggestive?' For perhaps the sixth time during this remarkable interview, Gideon wondered if he were not becoming light-headed. 'I suppose it's just because he's been lunching,' he thought, and then added aloud, 'To what figure may I go?' 'Perhaps 5,000 would be enough for today,' said Michael. 'Now, sir, do not let me detain you any longer. The afternoon wears on. There are plenty of trains to Hampton Court, and I needn't try to describe to you the impatience of my friend. Here is a £5 note for current expenses, and here is the address.' And Michael began to write, paused, tore up the paper, and put the pieces in his pocket. 'I will dictate,' he said. 'My writing is so uncertain.' Gideon took down the address: Count Tarnow, Cornwall Villa, Hampton Court. Then he wrote something else on a sheet of paper. 'You said you had not chosen a solicitor,' he said. 'For a case of this sort, here is the best man in London.' And he handed the paper to Michael. 'God bless me!' ejaculated Michael, as he read his own address. 'Oh, I dare say you have seen his name connected with some rather painful cases,' said Gideon. 'But he is himself a perfectly honest man, and his capacity is recognized. And now, gentlemen, it only remains for me to ask where I shall communicate with you.' 'The Langham, of course,' returned Michael. 'Till tonight,' replied Gideon, smiling. 'I suppose I may knock you up at a late hour?' 'Any hour, any hour,' cried the vanishing solicitor. 'Now there's a young fellow with a head on his shoulders,' he said to Pitman, as soon as they were in the street. Pitman was indistinctly heard to murmur, 'Perfect fool.' 'Not a bit of him,' returned Michael. 'He knows who's the best solicitor in London, and it's not every man can say the same. But I say, didn't I pitch it hot?' Pitman returned no answer. 'Hullo!' said the lawyer, pausing. 'What's wrong with the long-suffering Pitman? "You had no right to speak of me as you did," the artist broke out. "Your language was perfectly unjustifiable. You have wounded me deeply." "I never said a word about you," replied Michael. "I spoke of Ezra Thomas. And do please remember that there's no such party." "It's just as hard to bear," said the artist. But by this time they had reached the corner of the by street, and there was the faithful shoeblack, standing by the horses' heads with a splendid assumption of dignity, and there was the piano, figuring forlorn upon the cart, while the rain beat upon its unprotected sides and trickled down its elegantly varnished legs. The shoeblack was again put in requisition to bring 5 or 6 strong fellows from the neighbouring public house, and the last battle of the campaign opened. It is probable that Mr Gideon Forsyth had not yet taken his seat in the train for Hampton Court before Michael opened the door of the chambers, and the grunting porters deposited the Broadwood Grand in the middle of the floor. "And now," said the lawyer, after he had sent the men about their business, "one more precaution. We must leave him the key of the piano, and we must contrive that he shall find it. Let me see." And he built a square tower of cigars upon the top of the instrument, and dropped the key into the middle. "Poor young man," said the artist, as they descended the stairs. "He's in the devil of a position," assented Michael drily. "It'll brace him up." "And that reminds me," observed the excellent Pitman, "that I fear I displayed a most ungrateful temper. I had no right, I see, to resent expressions, wounding as they were, which were in no sense directed." "That's all right," cried Michael, getting on the cart. "Not a word more, Pitman. Very proper feeling on your part. No man of self respect can stand by and hear his alias insulted." The rain had now ceased. Michael was fairly sober. The body had been disposed of, and the friends were reconciled. The return to the Mews was, therefore, in comparison with previous stages of the day's adventures, quite a holiday outing; and when they had returned the cart, and walked forth again from the stable yard, unchallenged and even unsuspected, Pitman drew a deep breath of joy. "And now," he said, "we can go home." "Pitman," said the lawyer, stopping short, "your recklessness fills me with concern. What! We have been wet through the greater part of the day, and you propose in cold blood to go home? No, sir. Hot Scotch." And taking his friend's arm, he led him sternly towards the nearest public house. Nor was Pitman, I regret to say, wholly unwilling. Now that peace was restored and the body gone, a certain innocent skittishness began to appear in the manners of the artist, and when he touched his steaming glass to Michael's, he giggled aloud like a venturesome schoolgirl at a picnic. Chapter 8